You ever have your whole world change in the space of a heartbeat?
Last night.
Mine did. Summer of '84. My father's study thick with cigar smoke and the weight of his expectations. "You'll marry Clara Hensley this Saturday," he said, slamming that folded envelope on his desk like a judge's gavel. Just like that. Cold as winter iron. Now, folks called me different things back then. Handsome when I was younger and still green around the edges. That bastard when they thought I couldn't hear. But that day, staring at my father's unyielding face, I felt like nothing more than livestock being traded for land. Then she walked into that room. Clara Hensley. Uninvited, unannounced, her gray dress hugging curves that could make a saint forget his prayers. When our eyes met, something shifted. Not love. Hell no. Not yet. But recognition. Like looking into a mirror and seeing someone just as trapped as you are. Maybe I should have refused right then. Maybe that would have been the honorable thing. But partner, when did honor ever keep a man warm at night? Pour yourself a drink if you're settling in for this one. If this story's worth your time, hit that subscribe button and let me know where you're listening from. Saturday morning came harsh and unforgiving. I stood at that altar in the Callaway Chapel, black coat stiff as my resolve, watching Clara walk down the aisle toward me. She didn't glide like some delicate flower. No, sir. She walked with purpose, measured and deliberate, that gray dress moving with her body in ways that made my mouth go dry. Even the ranch hands, tough as leather and twice as weathered, couldn't look away. The preacher's words fell like dry leaves, meaningless sounds in the summer heat. "Do you, Caleb Thornton, take this woman?" "I do." The words tasted like dust. "And you, Clara Hensley?" Her voice was soft as silk, sharp as a blade. "I do." Then came the moment I'd been dreading and craving in equal measure. Lifting that veil. My fingers grazed the lace, brushed the edge of her jaw, and the contact sent lightning through my veins. When I saw her face, really saw it, my breath caught. She wasn't the broken relic I'd feared. Her beauty wasn't loud or demanding. It waited, steady, with eyes that held storms, and a mouth that curved just enough to unsettle me. "Hello, husband," she whispered, so quiet only I could hear. That night, I helped her move into the room across from mine. Just a few things, a journal, a faded photograph, some herbs that carried the scent of summers I'd never known. I stood in my doorway, shirt half unbuttoned, watching her shadow move through the crack under her door. When she reached up to place a book on the shelf, her blouse pulled tight across her back, and I had to grip the door frame to keep from crossing that hallway and finding out if her skin was as soft as it looked. We were bound by law, not love, but already she was under my skin like a splinter I couldn't dig out. The hands whispered about her family, the Hensley name reduced to dust and desperation, her father's debts that followed her like ghosts. Some said she was there to save herself. Others figured she was planning something darker. Me? I was beginning to think she might be my salvation or my ruin. Maybe both. The days that followed were torture, wrapped in propriety. Clara didn't play the meek wife my father expected. She was up before dawn, studying our ledgers in the kitchen, her fingers tracing numbers with the precision of someone who understood money and power. I found her there one morning, coffee growing cold beside her, a lock of dark hair falling across her cheek. The sunrise caught that hair, like spun gold. "You're up early?" I said, voice rough from a sleepless night spent thinking about the woman across the hall. She glanced up, those gray eyes sharp but warm. "This place has secrets." "I intend to know them." Her confidence unsettled me, not because it was bold, but because it was earned. I pulled out a chair, sitting closer than I meant to, catching the faint scent of lavender in her hair. "You always this curious?" I asked. "Only when people think I'm not looking," she replied, her voice low, like a dare wrapped in calm. I started finding excuses to be near her. At first, simple things, checking her work, bringing her coffee, but every moment felt charged, dangerous. When she worked the ranch, sleeves rolled up, sweat tracing the hollow of her throat, I had to force myself to look away. The woman was built for work, not sitting pretty in parlors. She hauled feed, checked posts, worked alongside the hands with a strength that shouldn't have surprised me but did. Every movement was grace and power combined, and it was driving me half crazy. One evening, we sat on the porch, coffee cups forgotten, the silence between us speaking louder than words. "Why'd you say yes to this marriage?" I finally asked. Her answer came raw, unguarded. I was tired of surviving alone. Not of being alone, but of pretending it didn't ache. The honesty cut me deep. I shifted closer, our knees brushing, the contact sending heat through my blood. "And you?" she asked, turning to face me. "Why'd you agree?" The truth spilled out before I could stop it, because I didn't know how to be anything but what he made me. Something shifted in her eyes then. Understanding, maybe, or recognition of a fellow prisoner. Her hand rested on the railing, inches from mine. I imagined tracing those fingers, feeling her pulse under my thumb, pulling her close enough to taste the whispered promises on her lips. But doubt held me back. Her father's debts, the whispers about men who might come looking. Was she building a life with me, or just escaping the one behind her? The question burned in my chest, but her nearness made it hard to think straight. She was a storm wrapped in silk, and I was already caught in the wind. 3 weeks later, everything changed. Father sent us to check the south fence line, his orders, though I suspected he had his own reasons for getting us away from the ranch. We dismounted near a weathered post, and Clara knelt to inspect it, her riding skirt pulling tight across her thighs. I moved closer, pretending to examine the wood, but my eyes were on her, the way her blouse shifted to reveal the curve of her collarbone, how her dark hair caught the afternoon light. "This needs replacing," she said, her fingers tracing the splintered grain. I leaned in, close enough to catch her scent, to feel the warmth of her breath. "Does it?" My voice came out rougher than I intended. When my hand brushed hers, slow and deliberate, she didn't pull away. Instead, she looked up at me with those storm-gray eyes, and I saw her lips part slightly, felt the tremor that ran through her. My other hand found her waist, the fabric soft under my palm, and she swayed toward me, like metal drawn to a magnet. The world narrowed to the heat between us, the pull I couldn't resist. I was about to kiss her when the wind shifted. Fire. The acrid scent hit us like a physical blow. On the horizon, orange flames licked at the sky, threatening everything we'd fought to protect. We ran. Jesus, how we ran. But partner, let me tell you something about that moment. Watching Clara dive into that inferno changed everything I thought I knew about her. She hauled water buckets with a ferocity that stole my breath, working alongside the hands like she'd been born to it. Her sleeves rolled high, arms straining, not caring about propriety or appearances. Just pure, fierce determination to save what was ours. Ours. When had I started thinking of it that way? I worked beside her, our shoulders brushing as we fought the flames, and every accidental touch felt like lightning. When she stumbled, exhausted, I caught her against my chest, felt her heart hammering against mine. "You didn't have to do that," I said when the fire finally died, both of us soaked and streaked with soot. "Neither did you," she replied, meeting my gaze steadily. But we did. Simple words, but they carried the weight of partnership, understanding, maybe even trust. That night, I found her in Father's study, going through old letters with shaking fingers. "What are you looking for?" I asked, sharper than I meant to. She met my eyes without flinching, but I saw fear there, real, honest fear. Answers. My father owed men. Husband. Men who don't forget. The truth hit me like a physical blow. I stepped closer, anger and protectiveness warring in my chest. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't know if you'd care." The words stung, and I grabbed her wrist, not to hurt, but to anchor her, to keep her from slipping away. I care. More than I should. The air crackled between us, our faces inches apart. I could have kissed her right there in my father's study. Consequences be damned. Could have pulled her against me and shown her exactly how much I cared. But a sound cut through the moment. A low rumble, like distant thunder. We froze, still touching, hearts pounding, as another glow appeared on the horizon. Another fire, threatening to devour what we'd just saved. Clara's hand found my arm, a touch that steadied me even as dread rose in my throat. We had a ranch to defend, but more than that, we had this fragile thing between us, whatever it was, and I wasn't about to let either burn. That second fire never came. False alarm, a lightning strike in the distance, smoke from someone else's troubles. But standing there in the dark, Clara's hand on my arm, I realized something had shifted between us. The next morning, I made my choice. I walked into Father's study, shoulders squared, ready for the fight I'd been avoiding my whole life. "I choose her," I said, voice steady as bedrock. "Not for your land, not for your name, for me." Father's eyes went cold as January frost. "You're throwing away everything I built." "No," I said, already turning toward the door. "I'm building something better." Clara waited by the horses, her braid loose in the morning light. When she saw me coming, I caught a question in those gray eyes. "You sure about this?" she asked. I stepped close enough that our shadows merged in the dust. I've never been more sure of anything. We rode out to the ridge that evening, to land that had once belonged to her father. She dismounted near an old cottonwood, its roots deep in the earth of her past. "This is home," she said, but she wasn't talking to the land. I took her hand, not to claim, but to share. "Then let's make it ours." That's when she finally told me the rest. About her father's gambling debts, about the men who'd come looking, forcing her family to sell everything, about how she'd married me not just for security, but because she'd seen something in my eyes that first day, the same trapped feeling she'd carried for years. "I'm not the innocent girl you deserve," she whispered. "Good," I said, pulling her closer. "I'm not the honorable man you deserve either." We kissed then, under a sky full of stars, not desperate or hungry, but gentle, like a promise being sealed. I tasted tears on her lips, hers or mine. I couldn't tell. The months that followed weren't easy. Father cut me off, just like he'd threatened. Clara's past caught up with us more than once, men looking for debts that weren't hers to pay. But we faced it together, and that made all the difference. I learned that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone whose imperfections fit with yours, like pieces of a broken puzzle. Clara's ghosts and my rebellion, her strength and my stubborn streak, they all somehow work together. We built something real on that ridge. Not just a ranch, but a life. A partnership based on choice, not obligation. Some folks said I was a fool for giving up my inheritance. Others whispered that Clara had bewitched me, turned me against my own blood. They were wrong about the bewitching part. Clara never tried to change me. She just showed me who I could be if I was brave enough to choose. And choose her I did. Every morning when I wake up next to her. Every evening when we watch the sunset from our porch. Every moment in between. Years have passed since that summer when my world changed. Father's gone now. Died still angry at me for choosing love over legacy. But Clara and I, we're still here. Still choosing each other. We have 3 children now, and a spread that stretches from the ridge to the river. The old cottonwood where we first kissed still grows, its branches reaching toward the sky like hope made visible. Clara's in the kitchen as I tell you this story, probably wondering why I'm talking to myself again. The gray in her hair catches the lamplight, and she's more beautiful now than she was that first day she walked into my father's study. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd been the dutiful son he wanted. If I'd married her and kept my distance, treated her like a business arrangement instead of the woman who saved my soul. But that's not the choice I made, partner. And I thank God for that every single day. See, most folks spend their lives doing what they think they should do, following paths laid out by other people's expectations. But sometimes, if you're brave enough or foolish enough, and maybe they're the same thing, you get to choose who you want to be. I chose Clara. She chose trust. And maybe that's all love really is. 2 people choosing each other, again and again, until the choosing becomes as natural as breathing. If you've listened this far, partner, maybe you understand what I'm getting at. Love's always worth the risk, even when, especially when, it costs you everything else. Hit that subscribe button, and maybe I'll tell you about the time Clara outdrew 3 of her father's creditors with nothing but sharp words and sharper aim.